Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. My partner has learned something over the years. The process he has, which you call channeling, is also his sweet spot. Regardless of what is happening around him in his life, the issues, the frustrations, the problems which he has, some of the same that you do, they all disappear when he sits in front of Spirit in this way. This is available for all of you. It's not called channeling. It's not even called meditation. You can do it with your eyes wide open even when you drive. This is a 24/7 relationship with what we call the house in the fog. We spoke yesterday about this elusive house in the fog that my partner found, that you have found as well. That so many of you listening to this have found. And it is a metaphor for the house which is yours with the many rooms. Not the house of a prophet or a belief system. Not the house that somebody told you was available for many and it's the same house. The reason it's in the fog is because you must discover it yourself with your intent. It does not show itself, dear ones. And this is by design. So that humanity, when it starts to move, will have done so on its own, by itself, with pure intent and discovery. Now, there are all manner of kinds of houses in the fog. One of them is integrity in all kinds of things, without any spirituality, just a different way of thinking. But the one I want to continue talking about right now is that which we discussed yesterday. The house in the fog is you. The power of you, what's in the house, and what's different there. Let us back up. I told you yesterday that there was a time when my partner was pleased with everything he was. There was no reason to search for any more. And this suits much of human population and civilization. They're in the box we talked about this morning. Don't disturb them. They're working with it. It's happening. In my partner's case, he found the house in the fog, that is to say, the one that was hidden, because that which occurred to him pushed a button of curiosity. Is there more? Now, Spirit cannot show you the house, but it can push the button of curiosity over and over and over. Sometimes it's through synchronicity. You bring a friend to this meeting. They don't understand anything that's happening, but when they leave, they realize that perhaps there's a house in the fog someplace with their name on it. And it starts a process that they must then pursue. This is free choice. The metaphor is clear. You've got to want to go there. Most of you sitting here and even listening to my voice have done so. But now it gets good. There are many rooms in this house, and in an old energy, you have opened the door and explored so many of them. We mentioned yesterday that so many of them were beliefs. And the challenge was to see if they matched yours. Could you justify the idea that you'd lived before? That's one of the rooms. Is it possible there's something called an Akashic record which would have then recorded what you did before? That's another room. So far, all of the rooms are very 3D. That is to say, they represent things and beliefs. Is it possible that sound and color has vibration that would heal? It's facts, beliefs, processes, even physics. And it requires that you open the door, take a look, close it if you're not ready, and come back when you are, if ever. And here we sit with the house in the fog with many rooms. Now we want to tell you something. You've now discovered a stairway. And you start going up the stairway, and the name of the stairway is profound. It has many names, dear ones. It is the shift of the planet, the precession of the equinoxes, the prophecy of the eagle and the condor, the city on the hill, peace on earth. And the stairway beckons itself for you to discover new rooms in your own house. The second story literally is the next story to be told. And you walk up the stairs and you are presented now with more rooms, and they're not near as easy. They present now a puzzle that deals with your inner core, that which is you, not necessarily something you want to believe in or you're curious about, but something that you have to work with that will change you forever. And there they are. You can even see the names on the doors, and some of you won't want to open them. And others will be brave enough to say, I'll try now. Come back later when I understand it more. The first one is called purpose. Very difficult, very difficult. A concept. What is your purpose on the planet? Not 3D. I am talking about your soul on earth. Why so many lifetimes? Why at all? Why now? And some of you have it figured out and some of you don't. And many don't want to try. It's too complicated. You're afraid of too much responsibility. You 3Dize it. You want to box it in there. You'll say, I know what my purpose is to help humanity and write this book and do this and this and this. You missed it completely. Purpose of spiritual soul. Why are you here? And I will tell you that as that door starts to open and you really want to look at it, you're going to be presented with some curious things. For that door inside contains puzzles. You have to take your three-dimensional mind and throw it away. And you're going to have to look at the concept of life at all. And if you ever found out the true reason, and you will, you'll smile. And that will lead you to the next house. You exist because you are part of the creative source and the plan that is beautiful. It has nothing to do with you. Your purpose is God. Ask those who walked the land here thousands of years ago, what was their purpose? And they would say, to be part of that which was everything, to balance what was. So much were they a part of it, they didn't even know how old they were. They weren't counting. It's time for you to stop counting and stop figuring it out. Because when you see real purpose, you'll know you are part of a very, very large plan of benevolence, of galactic purpose and love. It is universal. It's not about you. because you are a piece of everything. Can you decentralize? Or will it always be about the you that you walk around in the body that you have? This is the second story, dear ones. This is those who wish to become quantum. The second room is called self-balance. This is not obvious. But dear ones, if you accomplish the first one, and you have a far larger sense of why and who and purpose, you're going to start relaxing and realize that the things that take place and happen to you are fleeting. And that although you may mark them as significant, you may be frustrated by them, even fear. If you pass the first room, you'll also know that you will recover in whatever that means, because you are forever and you are self-balancing. Inside you is the master healer, the master psychologist, the channeler. All of those things, because you are part of the plan of God. You are self-balancing. If you were in the depths of despair, in the closet, a victim of all things in your mind, it's only a matter of time when that'll go away. The wise human will know that, and when they're in the depths of despair, will find something to keep them busy. Because time will take care of it, and you'll know it. Can you imagine? Can you imagine, no matter how you feel, no matter how angry or frustrated you are, if you knew there was the light coming, and all you had to do was wait, you would act differently instead of scrambling for solutions and survival. It's a different way of thinking, isn't it? A whole different concept. Room number 3. If you would get past the first 2 rooms, number 3 has a sign on it that says completeness. You are complete. How many of you keep waiting for what you're supposed to be doing? Don't raise your hand. There is a feeling of linearity within you. The clock is always ticking, and you want to know what you're going to do when you grow up. And this is very common, especially with old souls. Especially because you see at some level the power that you have, and you're never complete. You're never complete. When you go to bed at night and you think about who you are and where you are and what's going on, can you honestly say, I am that I am. I am complete with myself. If nothing ever happens past here, it's beautiful. Thank you, God. And I will tell you that most light workers don't think that way. What about the incomplete project that's going to make the difference, or where you're about to go, or the next level, or those kinds of things? It's a human bias of time, and also of what we will call bias of hierarchy. You're always reaching to the next rung to be higher than you are today, with the idea that a higher vibration is going to make you better and those around you better, not realizing you're complete. You're complete. Now, you may do many things in linearity, but you're complete. God sees you as complete. Why can't you? There's a difference here. Very difficult, very subtle to understand when you say there's things that I must accomplish and do. Oh, how human of you. Not when you're spiritually whole and complete. And that should give you a feeling of relaxation. No matter what I'm going through, you'll say, I'm complete. I know the purpose is beyond this lifetime, even the next lifetime. I am eternal and I'm complete. I'll walk this planet and do what I must, but it's not going to bother me, because I am complete. Can you have peace with yourself? This is also very difficult. Those who have passed the first doors and are complete have total peace with themselves. And you may be in a situation where you're not finished and you know you're not finished, or you're frustrated because things around you are not moving. In fact, you feel like you're never settled. The biggest challenge: can you be at peace with yourself anyway? The new normal is this way. It pushes and pulls you with an old energy that tells you you are incomplete, you're not worthy, and you're never satisfied. You want to know what a balanced old soul looks like? They glow because they're satisfied and peaceful with who they are. And they may be in the midst of turmoil in 3D. Do you see how these rooms are more advanced than you thought? They're difficult even for my partner to deliver the message because he has linear concepts and he is discussing quantum ones. The final door is the hardest. It's difficult to even have a name on it. We're going to call it the new human. It's evolution. Are you ready for such a change that you won't even feel like a human being? A change that you cannot fathom, and one that all planets of ascension have gone through. So remarkably difficult is it that some have had many psychological problems with it because it is so different that you feel you're losing your mind. And yet it is sustainable through the love of God and with the help of holding the hand of the Creator. Dear ones, when you start being in touch with your DNA at a higher percentage and you're moving toward what we will call the 44 percentile, your brain functions differently and starts to work with innate and even the heart energy. A new process begins with you. It affects everything you are. You see things that you've never seen before, awarenesses of things you were never aware of before. You hear differently, you perceive differently, and it's all you can do not to be strange. You keep it to yourself until you find that others are experiencing similar things. This is one of the most difficult shifts that's coming for humanity. The Pleiadians went through it. They know what it is. If I told you what they could do now at DNA working at over 80%, you would recognize it because this is what the masters who walked the planet were able to do. Think about this. Consciousness over physics. The ability to produce objects and things with your mind that are real. Where nature actually obeys the physics of your consciousness because it is higher than that. Did you hear that? That the consciousness that you have, which is mastery itself, nature obeys it. Are you ready for that? You say you are. No, you're not. Not yet. But it will begin slowly. And when it does, you're not going crazy, dear ones. You've just met yourself, the real self. Some of you will know what I'm talking about. Not too distant future. Now listen. All of you. Listen. Complete with yourself. Look in the mirror. I want you to imagine you don't look like that. Don't let the gender fool you. You're going to look eternal. The next time around, the next time around, the next time around. There's a lot to do. And you'll keep coming back and doing it and living longer and wiser as you do. And the mirror can never reflect the second story. This channel is a puzzle to many. But it had to be given on this land. The energy is correct for it. It's why some of you came. And you'll want to hear it again. Like all of the others, this channel is given in love and benevolence to those who have passed the marker. We've seen this before, and it is exciting. Be complete. Breathe. Relax. And know that all is well. And so it is. So it is. So it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. My partner steps away as normal. And he's a bit unprepared for what follows. For I've told him it is a bit complex. He is, after all, an interpreter. And the years that he has spent doing this is where he can convert a multi-dimensional language that comes at him in such a different way into a stream of consciousness and language that would be more commonplace for you. If you could see it linearly, you'd see that the thoughts occur several times for clarity. He has to sort them out and present them then in a linear fashion, not double, not triple. Sometimes they will come in backwards. That is to say, the adjectives, the subjects, the verbs, they'll come in a language that he's not used to, and he has to sort it out. This has become natural to him, like an interpreter of another language. But when the concepts are odd, it is more difficult. So let's start with a basic concept. Love. No matter who you are, listening today, here today with me, I want you to sit peacefully and just be with me. If it were possible, and perhaps someday it will be, if it were possible to have a situation where we could sit with one another and I could take your hand. I want this to be one of those times. We're getting closer. The veil between humans and that which is the creative source of energy, that veil starts to lessen, lift, if you wish, become more transparent. And in that, humans are starting to see so many things. And they see it in a different way. Awarenesses are starting to be generated. And you're starting to see things that perhaps you didn't see before. With more awareness, you become more comfortable. Those who are in the dark are afraid. And you are afraid of so much. Who is there? What are they going to do? What is the energy that you're going to run into or not? The great unknown is that which you cannot see. And light workers and old souls are starting to see better. In parts of the world that are in strife completely, always, we have said the words, color is coming. And that is a metaphor because those areas are in black and white, and they always have been. And when you start to see shades of gray and they go into color, it's a metaphor of new awarenesses. And with those awarenesses come solutions that have never been thought of before. Solutions require both sides of an issue become aware. That, dear ones, is where we want to begin. For those who are not here, I am in the country of New Zealand. I am in the north, in a city called Auckland. There are those in front of me that were not part of anything that we did before this, and there are some who were. But nobody who is listening that is not here was part of what we're going to talk about. It is so difficult to explain some concepts that are not linear to you, no matter how often we speak of them. So just sit with me and listen. There was a small group of humans on the tour last week. We went to a special lake called Monika. It was a perfect day, and the sun shone upon us. My partner sat on a rock and started to channel, and everything started to shift. He spoke of many things, and I'll review that. He again spoke through me of the crystalline grid, of how it was starting to change and what it was about. He talked about the fact that the grid is human remembrance. It remembers actions of human beings. It absorbs emotions. In that group, there were 3 who had a major epiphany of life as they started to tune into that grid. They made life decisions at that moment that they'll carry with them, not only this life, but when they awaken to the next. I talked about so many kinds of things, including those who would listen later. And the recorder was stopped. It was not to be recorded, any of it, not even the beginning. There was no mystery on how the recorder stopped. My partner does not remember any of this. But right before you started, and right before the recording was to be engaged, it was on and running. And my partner reached down and turned it off. He doesn't remember that. On purpose, the things that followed for the next 20 minutes were private. And yet I talked about those who would hear it later and those who would respond to what they were doing there at that moment later, as though the recorder was working and operating. And now I'm going to explain why, the best I can through my partner. During the trip in this great land, this pristine place, the place they call the Second Lemuria, the place where so many Lemurians came away from that island that was sinking, the history that we've given you, those people postured this land in beauty, also in consciousness, and visited a node called Aoraki. We listed this node even before 2012. You knew it was here, and it remained silent. This is a time capsule that was put here by the Pleiadians. No matter what you think of this information, of how bizarre it might be, or whether it was really true, you really don't have a substance of truth to refer to when we speak of these things, and I know this. And so that's why I'm saying disengage that which is intellect at the moment and just listen. Sit with me for a moment and just be loved and listen to the story. The time capsule would open at the right time when it was paired. And we did. This was the reason for the visit to South Island completely. And we paired it up, and you can find out where that is, and you can look at it in the northern hemisphere of the planet in Russia. The pairing of these two nodes and nulls has engaged something. Finally, you needed to have this many of them engaged. It was a divine engagement, these two. It had to wait until this year. This year, 2016. 2016 is a 9. It is a completion year. And at this part of the year, we aligned these two together. Beautiful, timed perfectly. And those at Wanaka felt it all. I want to tell you what was engaged. There is a communication coming up that is multidimensional, that involves this crystalline grid. What happens is when human beings have a divine epiphany of any kind, especially on pristine land where nothing has happened and there have been no wars or no major battles and no layers and layers and layers of history, when it's really connected to the earth, when it opens up so strongly, when somebody has a major epiphany that will last for lifetimes and lifetimes, it is imprinted right there in the grid. But because of the engagement of these two, a node and a null, these two, it starts to change what the magnetics do and what the crystalline grid does. Dear ones, I'm here to tell you that what happened at Wanaka happened all through the grid. It's becoming delocalized. And so therefore the invitation was for all to hear it and feel it who wanted to, no matter where they were on the planet. It didn't refer to the recording. And it went further, and it said, those of you who have these kinds of thoughts and discoveries and epiphanies are somehow talking to all the rest of humanity. And now you know why. It begins to shape itself differently than you ever thought it would. We have talked about this crystalline grid over and over. How localized it is when you walk into a battlefield and you feel that which is awful and happened, it stays in the battlefield. And you walk away from it and you realize it's over there where it happened. That's the crystalline grid in the old days. Now the grid truly starts to become multidimensional, where everything happens at the same time. But this particular grid is now being tuned not to drama and horror and war, but to celebration, epiphany, love, laughter, joy, discovery.
And generation after generation will start to implant these things, and the earth is going to feel it through the crystalline grid. And they don't have to walk where you walked. Let me interpret. This is a good place for epiphanies. Because when you have the pristineness of the land, even that which had the consciousness of the creative source and Lemuria, when you have this, things that happen here are going to go into the grid, and all are going to participate much faster than other places. Where the crystalline grid has remembered so much that has been of a negativity, of the wars. Dear ones, you live in a place that is profoundly hooked to the new energy of Earth, profoundly connected to the new human on the planet. Those who have never been here, this may be a call for them to come and experience not just the beauty, but the pristineness of a land that is connected directly to Gaia. My partner took me to Ireland, and we spoke of this in a different way. We spoke of the anomalies that have happened with the grids that would create a null, a void of energy, even of a grid. And so Ireland was one where the energy of Gaia poured out. It even makes some uncomfortable. Where they've been seeing little people for hundreds of years. And that's real. It's almost like an uncontrolled Gaia that presents itself all the time. This is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a balanced, complete, beautiful, benevolent, compassionate energy of nature, which knows your name. And anyone who has traveled this land, in the north or the south, knows it. Perhaps you were born here, perhaps you lived here all of your life. When you get out of town and into these places, you never get used to it. Ever. Because you feel it talking to you. Oh, you can deny it, but it's always there. Sit and listen to this story, because it plays significantly into New Zealand. It was time for this node and this null to be connected. And in that, the engagement has happened. The two have been engaged in an action that will start allowing the crystalline grid of this planet to become more multidimensional, so that the greatest epiphanies and discoveries and awarenesses of humans in pristine places like this will be transferred immediately all over the planet. Now you know how it is that humans are going to go through the muddle of a place that has had only war. How do you scrape away the history of drama and death and sorrow? Well, you don't have to scrape anything away, because this particular grid is having placed upon it, the top of it, the things that happen in places like this. There are other places like this that are pure, and where humans visit them and have meetings on purpose and have those who come alive and aware, it goes everywhere. This is called a fast track to enlightenment. And I've just given you the ABCs of how this works with the crystalline grid. And until these two were matched, and until we could then, in this time, in this year, put them together, we couldn't even tell you what was going to happen. And the reason is this. Because, dear ones, you have free choice. And there are certain things that have to be in place before each matched pair. Not only that, don't take this wrong, but the ones yet to be matched, they have no matched pair at this point. It's done in the moment, where they should be, depending upon where the consciousness of Earth is. And so it wasn't known until last week. You're in the right place at the right time. Here's the challenge. In this room, here's the challenge. I want you to awaken fully, even more than you have. And I want you to know that you are sharing your awakening, not personally, but in general, with a crystalline grid that is starting to vibrate and come alive for humanity, not just for this area. This is a profound step of difference on the planet. What happens here and other places like this, where there has been no war, starts to affect the places that have. The prophecy of the eagle and the condor is the coming together of hemispheres. This is one way, profoundly, that the mother hemisphere, the pristineness, the femininity of this hemisphere will change the north. It is no accident that the null is in the north. The handshake is complete. The engagement begins now. And what happens now, and what happened at Wanaka, changes the planet. That is the message of today. Profound it is, the changes that are occurring. But I want you to know that this particular place you call New Zealand is playing a major role in it. My partner has been drawn here now 4 times. I will tell you something that is up to this point confidential. The first time he came, he was uncomfortable. He became sick. He carries part of that even with him to this day. He came to the island before it was ready for him. He didn't want to come back because he was afraid it would happen again. But when he came back, he realized it embraced him. He fell in love with it. And part of that is the reason he sits here now. The human has to be involved in these things, not just the creator. Everything that happens on this planet is human-driven. The channeling you hear is the human in a chair. The ears that hear it are humans who are receptive to it. The changes that will occur on the planet will come through human consciousness. Everything that we have put in place through that which is a Pleiadian or otherwise, or Gaia, responds to humans. Sit with me a moment and feel the love that has gone into this, or the synchronicity that you're alive today to know it and not destroyed in a world war. What happens now and today and this week will affect generations. But this is the land right now that will broadcast what happens to light workers all around the planet. Did you feel that? Your maturity, old soul, is going to be that which goes all over the planet. There are other places like this, but not exactly like this one. It's a wonderful story. It's a true story. It's one we are so proud to tell you. Spirit can be proud when it comes to love. One of the few things that pass untouched through the veil is laughter, joy, benevolence, compassion, and love. That's God in you. And we think of that which has been matched in the node and the null that is operating, the crystalline grid that is moving, that is changing your part in it, all of these things. It's all we can do to be still. There's an entourage in this room that wants to hug every one of you and say thank you for all that you have gone through, which has been difficult and old and ugly and dark, because you're coming into the light. That is why you're called a light worker. And it hasn't been easy, and it still isn't. Finally, there are those here who are also able right now to drop the old stuff. A beginning is at hand. We said at Monika, it's not a new beginning, it's a beginning. It is so different in a paradigm. It isn't a return to when things were better. Is it an advancement into the light? Would you like to live longer? Would you like to have more joy in your life? Would you like to walk out the door and see things differently than you do? Would you like to relax with some things that you're not relaxed with right now? I know who's here. You don't have to wake up every morning and think about these things, dear ones. I know who's here. You can drop them right now. And if you do, and if you can, and if you will, it goes right into this crystalline grid in this place, and the planet feels the process. It helps to scrub clean those very dark areas. Epiphanies of you change everything. Others who are listening, I'm telling you, the crystalline grid will work this way for you too. Every single place is different. We speak in the one, perhaps, that is the most pristine. But there are others where very little has happened and very few people live, where this is not as possible. But you can travel there too. I encourage ceremony where ceremony has never been done. I encourage wilderness trips to go to pristine places and sit and look at the mountains and the water and shake hands with Gaia and examine your life, because that will then go right into the grid. It's a new paradigm of thought, perhaps, for different reasons, perhaps. And it's all part of the new human being and processes yet to come. Congratulations, dear ones, for everything you've accomplished, and also for what is about to happen. More on that later. For now. And so it is.
And just sort of feel your body as a little island of its own. And you're not connected to anyone else's energy or story, or even your own story. But you're open to receiving the love that is here for you, the teachings that are here for you, the guidance that's here for you. And the beauty of each moment as that unfolds. And you trust that it's always perfect, even when you don't know. And you know that you don't know. You can still trust the one love of God. You can still trust that Spirit is around you. Spirit is got your back, always, in and in all things. So as you prepare your body and your mind and your spirit for the love and the wisdom of Kryon, you might want to feel into that place of gratitude for what always has been in your life and the what is still to come.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. And how many times have we said that? I know. And if I told my partner, then he would start keeping track. And that's because human beings do that. And before I start this short channeling about a subject which is complex, one that has been brought up this day and needs to be discussed, I want to take a moment to say this. This may not be your reality. And even as the human being sits with wisdom, acceptance, tolerance, patience, the idea that a man can sit in a chair and deliver words in your language succinctly that are supposed to be from the other side of the veil is a stretch. And we know it. When we speak to the individuals in the room through intuition, it's often not seen, heard, acknowledged, sometimes discounted, and we know it. And that's why they call it a veil. There is a separation between the consciousness of a 3 or 4 single-digit human being and a multidimensional creative source, and we know it. And so much of the puzzlement that goes on with the old soul trying to connect with a higher power is the puzzlement of not truly understanding what's on the other side of the veil. It would be like you driving across a bridge having no idea what will be on the other side, whether there'll be roads on the other side, whether or not that physics works the same way for your car on the other side. So how is it that you're expected to have a linear communication with an energy that is benevolent and loving and compassionate, but you really don't know much about? Now I'm speaking to you in your language. And I'm doing it in a linear way that is one word after another. And that is not how I'm speaking to my partner. And it took him years to take a language that is not linear and put it into linearity. And I would like to tell you what was involved, because both of us changed. And that is the secret. God is not a static God, one that is uninterested in energy in the sky that just lays there and hopes you get it right. It is a benevolent, loving entity, if you wish to call it an entity that knows you personally because you're part of it. You are a piece of the energy of the Creator. Therefore, as you reach your hand out, we reach ours out too. And so that expression of free will has to do with intent. And as you reach to us and you say, I wish and I intend to communicate in a way that is succinct
understandable, accurate, and pure, you've got help. For we then start to change the way we see you because of the way you see us. You open a window for both. And so through the years, my partner, through the window that he has opened, has changed the way we communicate with him. And we have become more linear. And he has become more multidimensional. And in that process, you get purity, understanding, and a succinct message. And if you study the channeling of Kryon, you will see the structure in the message. It's compartmentalized. It's logical. There's a start, a middle, a finish. And none of these things will you see in a multidimensional energy, a soup where there is no time. And so something had to happen in our communications that would allow this meld. And what about your intuition? It is the same. As you start to practice that which you call intuitive thought, if you wish to hold on to it longer and see what it says, the sender of the intuitive thought will also change. You are giving intent to straighten out, interpret, and translate the message as you give intent to hear it. Human beings are compartmentalized to the max, and this is part of being a three-dimensional human. You actually are in 4D, but you call it 3. And past that, there is a multidimensional soup, not even countable. It doesn't go 5 on. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, all. And it makes it so difficult to cross that bridge. And so what I'm going to tell you next is going to trigger confusion. And it's exactly what I want to do. Because I wish you to think out of the box. In order to do this, I will present a scenario that involves what you would call the human soul. Now, I just gave you an expression that is incorrect. It's only incorrect because human language betrays the bias of singularity in the phrase. The meaning a, human belonging to one, soul, not souls, singular. So you have one, human soul. It belongs to you, you belong to it. End of story. And that is how you portray it, and that is the way you think of it. So let us take that concept apart in a way that you will understand. And again, we start in that marvelous field long time ago when the prophet Elijah, with free will, decided to ascend. One of the only human beings, through free choice, who decided to ascend on his own schedule outside of the transition of death, and in his case had somebody watching and taking notes. And when he did it, the first thing that the note taker, whose name was Elisha, saw was that he turned into a ball of light. And so we have the concept right now of something happening and the question of what it was. For whatever the energy of the human soul was did not go into the sky and turn into light. Nothing came down to get him and turn into light. He turned into light while he stood in the field. And this was the combination of the pieces and the parts of the soul on earth and the soul on the other side of the veil. And that combination cannot be sustained in a corporeal form. Now, I want my partner to back up and give you that again. When you decide to come into this planet, dear human being, you already have a soul on my side. And it's not a soul. It's part of the soup of God. It's a collective, a confluence of energy that can never be separate. A piece of us is imbued in you. A piece. It's not possible for you to come into this planet with your entire self that is spiritual. You cannot bring your whole soul in because you would vaporize like Elijah did. Part of you has to stay on my side of the veil. And so the working puzzle here, and that you see, is you already have a soul split. And that soul split is the communication strand, some calling it the silver cord, that keeps you grounded on the planet but allows an open portal through the pineal to that which is the peace of God you are. You call it the higher vibrating self, higher self. And so your quest for the higher self is really the quest to talk to that part of you on the other side of the veil, which you call God. Are we confused yet? This is the easy part. So I hope you see this part, because the rest of it gets really confusing. And here you are on the planet, a piece of you. Because you are sacred part of the creative source, the other part of you remains on my side. What you call the other side of the veil. And now you're walking the earth with a puzzle. How do I connect? How do I connect? The old soul is the first one to ask that, because lifetime after lifetime they have felt the connection and they wish to reconnect it again. And this is part of what brings you to the chair, or to listen to this channeling, or to know more about your soul. So let us say this is the starting part of this story. Now it gets complicated. We have told you that upon your death, a piece and the part of that which is your soul energy stays on the planet in several ways. We'll talk about the living way so it doesn't get even more confusing. You stay with your loved ones as part of their guide set. And we have told you this before. How many of you sitting in the chairs, listening right now, can feel those you've loved and lost around you? And I will tell you, you've got to be dense as a brick not to. Because the old soul knows I'm right. If you've lost parents, they're with you. If you've lost children, they're with you. This is part of the most grand system you can imagine. And in the new teaching, in this newer energy, it is going to start to get more complex, because you are able to understand it. Swallow hard and say, although I am singular, I get it. You don't have to know the physics of it. But if you could be multidimensional and you would understand what the physicists call quantum, you'd know you can be in several places at the same time. Multidimensional energies that you can see on the planet, you can prove can do that. So it's not such a stretch that the soul can too. And you cannot ask the questions, where am I? You can't, because you're everywhere. Your focus at the moment is in your human body. But part of your soul is on the other side of the veil. Now it gets complicated. When you pass on, the corporeal part that was in your soul, part of it goes to collective, and you become complete, except that you leave some behind, and you leave it with your loved ones who remain. Now they have part of your soul as their guide group, and they're walking around on the earth. So let's take a summary. You have come and you've gone, you've departed, and now you are on the other side of the veil as a part of God, except pieces of you are with your loved ones, depending upon how many you have and how many children, and even those you've fallen in love with that are still here and you're not. They don't even have to be biological family, they're karmic family. You may be a piece and a part of as many as 25 or 30 people on the planet, and they're walking around. Now, how many are you at this point? And you can't answer that any more than you can say, how many are in the soup that we have discussed? Now, get ready for the hard part. You decide to reincarnate. And you do. And in comes the precious baby. And the cave of creation knows you're coming. And all that you were in all of your past lives is put into the DNA so that you would have the record inside of you as you progress and mature in your life and awaken, using that soup of energy and all the wisdom of the past lives to create this life, this new life as a child. And so here you are, reincarnated on the planet, and at the same time you're on the other side, and at the same time you're with 25 other people. So where is the soul now? Now I want you to amplify that by as many times as you've lived. And also to know that a part of your soul remains on the planet every single time you come and you go. That part of the energy of what you do is in the crystalline grid. And there's even more. Things we haven't discussed yet are part of this plan. You belong to Gaia. Because the Gaia energy is the collection point of the human soul parts, if you might say that. In a way, you never leave. In a way, you're always on the other side. In a way, you're always with loved ones. How do you like it so far? It's not about the complexity, it's about the beauty of the system. And it is a system. It's just not linear. And in our view, the hardest thing to tell you is this: because we have no time like you do, and because we have no linearity like you do, we see the culmination of all of your past lives and all of your karmic family happening all the time, and we see your imprint as enormous. I hope you get this. As you sit in the chair, we see the enormity of your soul influence on earth. And that is why we wash your feet. And that is why we congratulate you for what you've done. We don't see it a lifetime at a time like you do. We don't even see the complexity we've just given you. We just see your imprint and your stamp of this beautiful soul on so much of the planet, and so many humans who have also gone on to be old souls and shared it with their loved ones and karmic family. In a way, you might say the creative soul of you is everywhere. And I wanted to give that to you in these short moments so you'd have a better idea, not just of who you are, but as how we see you. Is it any wonder that our hand is always outstretched, waiting for pure intent? Waiting for free will, if you want to say, I want a bigger window. And in the bigger window, I'll have more information. And in the bigger window, I have more opportunities and more power, literally, to create that which I wish to create. And the old soul, with the maturity and the patience that is being developed, will always wish to create that which is benevolent for the planet, and it starts with peace on earth. That is only the first goal, dear one. You see it as the ultimate. Once you've got peace on earth, all is well. Oh, really? Once you have peace on earth, let me tell you, you can start the process of an ascended planet. Not until then. When you stop killing each other, we can begin. And we've never said that before either. There is so much ahead of you. And the old souls in the room are not done with your work. Do not interpret this as, oh my goodness, I'm going to be tired. Because you don't have the mind of God while you sit here in a corporeal body. When I see you on the other side of the veil, yet again, we'll celebrate and congratulate you as you return quickly in order to continue what you won't miss, the party you won't miss. This is what we see. It's the reason we're here. These are complex times with complex ideas that you are ready to hear. Go from this place different than you came, not confused, but rejoicing in the system that is benevolent and loving, created for you. And so it is.